President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu returns to Nigeria after a month-long break in France.
NNPCL CEO inspects ongoing AKK gas line project.
Well, 70% of all welding work have been completed. There are very many other components of this project. So once you are able to complete the welding and put certain basic installation, you can actually flow gas into this line. And
President Buhari to attend summit of Gulf of Guinea heads of state and government in Ghana.
Good Morning Nigeria today discusses the safety of Nigerians in crisis-torn Sudan.
All right, so for a 72-hour ceasefire has been announced by the warring factions in Sudan. But according to the BBC's report this morning, there are still skepticisms about compliance. Now, as you may well know, for more than 2 weeks now, citizens as well as foreigners, including Nigerians in Sudan, have been in dilemma about their safety. That's, of course, following fierce fighting between Sudanese armed forces and a paramilitary group known as Rapid Support Forces, RSF.
Now, according to various accounts, the two warring factions, as it were, are fighting over power as the Sudanese armed forces has not allowed the full integration of the Rapid Support Forces into the armed forces of the country.
And there are concerns, of course, that the conflict may degenerate into full-blown civil war as scores of people, including civilians, have been killed in the fight that has, of course, appeared to have no end in sight.
Some countries have begun the evacuation of their diplomats and nationals from Sudan as the calls for ceasefire by world leaders, including Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, appeared not to have been heeded until, of course, the latest assertion by the RSF for a 72-hour humanitarian ceasefire to provide a corridor of escape or evacuation for foreigners who are trapped in that country.
All right. So, of course, many world leaders have been, intervening or calling on both factions to ceasefire. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres have, however, warned of catastrophe in Sudan if the violence escalates further.
Now, the federal government of Nigeria has indicated that efforts are on to begin the evacuation of Nigerian diplomats and students in that country, as, of course, the fighting shows no sign of abating, which means that after the 72-hour ceasefire, full-blown crisis, of course, is likely to be the case. Now, we understand that the evacuation of Nigerians from Sudan could begin as early as this morning, according to government officials.
Of course, yesterday, Honorable Abike Dabiri was on the network news where she gave, a lot of insights into, preparations to get Nigerians out of Khartoum and, of course, Sudan. But there are also many questions the Nigerians are asking. Will Nigerians be fully evacuated from Sudan? That's one of those questions. And what are the provisions, that will be made for their safety in Sudan, that's while they are still in Sudan, and what measures should be taken to ensure the ceasefire to enable foreign nationals be evacuated. We said earlier on that, of course, the two factions have agreed to a humanitarian ceasefire to enable, people leave for safety. So these are some of the talking points. And Kingsley, again, the ceasefire, this morning, there are, skepticisms about whether or not the two factions to the conflict will keep to, this ceasefire. It will not be the first time that the ceasefire will be brokered.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we just hope that this time around the humanitarian corridor that is to be created in the course of the 3-day ceasefire will be respected, because we understand there are snipers along the way, particularly for those who are seeking to evacuate across the country's borders. Land borders with neighboring Egypt, neighboring Ethiopia, and elsewhere. It's a pretty precarious situation. Very many accounts have already stated that the figure of about 420 persons dead is indeed an underestimate. Better to say that hundreds have been killed, and this includes civilians, some of them women and children. And of course, thousands have been injured. The infrastructure of the capital city has been crippled. Water supply, of course, is now almost a luxury. And medical facilities are also not operating at optimal capacity because medical personnel themselves don't have access to get in there. So it's almost, some would say, a senseless conflict in that country. But of course, foreign nationals are having to make their way out of that environment. But not all foreign nationals are living by the way, and we should understand that Nigerians are said to number in their millions in that country. But students, of course, who are studying in some of the universities are seeking to make their way to safety, as well as, of course, Nigerian diplomats. So what are the issues, of course, that will appertain to the safe evacuation of those who are willing to leave and those whom the government must take out?
All right, so these are the questions we will be asking our guests this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. And just to add that the Minister of Foreign Affairs did clarify that there are about 5 million Nigerians living in Sudan. Of course, not all of them will be evacuated, as some of them may not also want to be evacuated. But on this note, I welcome you once again to Good Morning Nigeria this Tuesday. I am Claire Adelabu Abdurrasaq. Thank you very much for being with us this morning.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague Claire to also welcome you to the program live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. And we're broadcasting from our headquarters studios in Nigeria's capital of Abuja. In the course of the program, we have our complimentary segments. This is a newspaper review, business and sports. Right now, Noline Belame, our other colleague, takes the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Noline.
Good morning, Kingsley and Claire. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. President-elect Bola Tinubu is back in Nigeria after a month-long break in Paris. The president-elect arrived in the country via the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, Monday evening.
See me now?
No more speculation.
I'm standing before you. So, do I look like somebody who is sick? Whatever they like, they speculate. I'm healthy as sand, and I'm okay.
President Muhammadu Buhari will depart Abuja for Accra today to attend the third extraordinary session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the Gulf of Guinea Commission, GGC, convened by President Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana. The president is scheduled to participate and deliver remarks at the high-level discussion on strategies for strengthening peace and security in the fight against maritime-related crimes in the region. As the immediate past chair of the assembly, President Buhari had championed collective efforts by member states of the region, the Economic Community of Central African States, ECAS, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, the Gulf of Guinea Commission, GGC, and their partners to address and prevent piracy. In June 2019, Nigeria's National Assembly passed the Suppression of Piracy and Other Maritime Offences Act 2019, which aims to prevent and suppress piracy, armed robbery, and other unlawful acts against a ship. The president will be accompanied by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey Onyama, the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Mongono, the Director General, National Intelligence Agency, Ambassador Ahmed Rufai Abubakar, among other government officials. With 70% of the welding work completed, the sum of $1.1 billion generated from within the NNPC Limited has been spent so far on the ongoing Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano gas pipelines project. This was revealed by Group Chief Executive Officer NNPC Limited, Mele Kyari, during an on-the-spot assessment of one of the sites in Ahoko, Kogi State.
70% of all welding work have been completed. There are very many other components of this project. So once you are able to complete the welding and put certain basic installation, you can actually flow gas into this line, and as other parts of the project continue to be delivered.
In other news, First Lady of Nigeria, Aisha Buhari, has expressed appreciation for the support and cooperation she has been receiving from within and outside Nigeria for the accomplishment of the successful 8-year journey as the mother of the nation. The First Lady stated this during Eid al-Fitr lunch to commemorate the end of 2023 Ramadan fast.
It is my pleasure to express my heartfelt gratitude to all for the excellent relationship that both my family and I enjoyed from you during the last 8 years. Your cooperation, support, and prayers during this period have added flavor to the success of my journey.
The immediate past Director General of NTA, Malam Yakubu Ibn Muhammad, is calling on the people of Plateau State to unite and strategize on ways of ensuring speedy development of the state. This is contained in a lead paper he presented at a colloquium on rebranding the politics of Jos, using peace building as a tool for growth.
We must have peace on the plateau. We must have peace in Jos to develop.
2 persons have been confirmed dead by residents following a violent riot between youth groups in Gwarimpa district of the Federal Capital Territory. The incident is a fallout of alleged drug peddling, which has become the order of the day in Gwarimpa.
These boys are selling drugs here. That they were, police people came to chase them and they were running away. So somebody were making call on his domot. So they said it's person that is making call that called them to come and arrest them. So they went and start beating the boy. And the boy is an indigene of Gware. So because of that, the indigene now start retaliating, beating, chasing them. And instead of them to find a way to resolve it peacefully, then went and gathered themselves, start breaking people's car.
That's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Claire and Kinsley after the commercial break. Please don't go away. I am Nolin Ebel Ame.
All right, welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA. And time to talk business. And we're here. Active internet subscribers in Nigeria has grown to about 154.847 million in Q4 of 2022. Let's have the details with Alika Okbanachi Arwa.
According to the National Bureau of Statistics, active internet subscribers in Nigeria for the fourth quarter of 2022 stood at 154.847 million. This was a 9.07% increase from the corresponding quarter of fourth quarter of 2021, which recorded a total of 141.971 million subscribers. The total number of active voice subscribers in the fourth quarter of 2022 was 222.571 million, a 13.87% increase from 195.463 million reported in fourth quarter of 2021. From a quarter-on-quarter basis, the growth of internet subscription rose by 4.89%. In terms of state-by-state watch, Lagos State had the highest number of active voice subscribers in the fourth quarter of 2022 with 26.46 million, followed by Ogun State with 12.994 million and Kano with 12.373 million. Meanwhile, 4.6 million customers demand 137 billion from banks on transaction errors. 6 deposit banks in Nigeria received over 4 million complaints from their customers within a period of 1 year, with the total of refund hitting 137.62 billion naira. This was disclosed in the bank's audited financial reports for the year 2022 filed with the Nigerian Stock Exchange. An analysis of the financial reports revealed that the bank's over 4 million complaints were separate from the ones carried forward from the previous financial year of 2021. With business news, Alika Opanachi, Arua.
All right, many thanks, Alika, for the business news package. Coming up next for us is newspaper review.
All right, let's welcome Chukwudi Okole-Ugbaja to newspaper review segment to do his usual.
Hello.
Chicks the boy, good to see you.
Same here, Claire. You know, I see you once in a week, so anytime I see you, I get excited. Yes.
I see you all the time.
You do?
Because you chose to see me once a week.
You're a regular TV watcher. Hello, Kingsley.
Good to see you.
Same here.
How many times do you see him?
We'll see on that.
That has become important, Abby.
All right, let's quickly begin so we don't take much of your time. New Telegraph has the front page is quite busy, quite busy. But let's begin with the headline story: 10th Assembly, South, Northwest to produce Senate President and Speaker. And the writers there, as APC concludes zoning arrangement, have not withdrawn from race. Sani Musa, President-elect, returns after 4-week vacation, says he's ready for the task ahead. And the picture there, you see him, of course, with his hands up, waving, applauding the crowd that came, that, of course, was at the airport to cheer him. President-elect Bola Tinubu, Speaker, House of Representatives, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, and others during Tinubu's arrival at the Abuja International Airport yesterday. Now, as battle rages in Sudan, air peace offers to evacuate trapped Nigerians. NEMA evacuation begins today. UK troops fly in to rescue stranded Britons, and over 420 people killed, thousands wounded, UN claims. That's from Sudan. Now, don't issue license to Nigeria Air. Aggrieved airlines warn NACA. NCAA visa-free Africa agenda faces obstacles, hurts AU and SATM. Details of that on pages 4, 21 and 22. Also, other stories trending: server intact, ready for deployment. NPC, only accurate data will justify 869 billion naira budget. You can read that up on pages 17 and 28. NGF holds valedictory meeting for outgoing governors. Now, why government is unwilling to end killings in southern Kaduna? Landowners obtain warrant of possession against Nigerian army. Details of that on page 28. So let's take you a little just below the nameplate there. NNPCR has spent over $1.1 billion on a Geopolitical Kaduna Kano gas pipeline project. Details on page 2. Ebonyi South, Omai Okore renew rival. Imo governor, we've not endorsed any candidate according to the elders. And human trafficking, NAPTIP secured conviction of 599 offenders since 2004. That's on page 29. Now, RGP directs expedited probe of Adamawa wreck. Telephone users in Nigeria hit 222.6 million. That's according to NBS. Okay, so just the last story there above the nameplate. Collection cost. FG pays revenue-generating agencies 82.30 billion naira. And just tucked in there, NBS kerosene price rises by 102.37% to 1,142 naira in 1 year.
We also have the Blueprint newspaper, and the Blueprint will take the following headlines. Sudan crisis. Federal government mulls Egypt's support to rescue 5,500 Nigerians. Then you have two riders there. Air Peace offers to evacuate Nigerians. UK troops fly in for Britons, and Sudanese fighters fire at France and Qatar rescue teams. Appointments, that's the kicker for the lead headline. Outgoing APC governors and party chieftains and others intensify lobbying. Lobbyists resort to prayers, paid publicity and propaganda. Ibokwe doubts exclusion of Southeast from Transition Committee. Tinubu returns for May 29th inauguration, says I'm ready for task ahead. Nigerians happy to see him back. That's according to Barrow. And also there on the front page, FCT, 3 feared killed in Bagi natives and Hausa community clash in Gwarimpa. And Amak Chair Mai Kalangu urges ceasefire. Kogi monarch dies in kidnappers' den. Lasma rescues accident victims, recovers 100 used baby diapers. Enugu man strangles and buries friend in shallow grave. Buhari's quest to birth national carrier suffers setback. Failed transactions. Customers' complaints to banks increased by over 50% in 2022. We also have the Punch newspaper, and basically the stories are the same as some of the others that we read from, excuse me, we read from the other titles. But for emphasis, let's take the following from the front page of the Punch. Sudan conflict. Ethiopia blocks fleeing Nigerian students, and factions agree 72-hour ceasefire. And federal government knocks students for ignoring warnings against self-evacuation. And then below the photographs there on the front page, we take one that says Lagos Stadium. That's National Stadium in Lagos, from West Africa's best to national shame. Rampaging youths buried 2 Benue men alive. Chukudi.
Thank you, Kingsley. 2 quick ones before I go to 2 main ones. Kerosene, you just quoted figures that scare me more and more. That make figures that make me say, oh, sorry, dear Nigerian trees, you're going down more. Hello, desertification. We must do something about it. It's not funny. The environment is being laid bare by trees going down because people are looking for fuel coming from firewood. Good. 77% of Nigerian women use bleaching cream. NAFDAC says that. Actually, NAFDAC is reiterating figures the World Health Organization long ago dropped. Actually, when I see her dark, you know, and beautiful, most of the time I tell my daughter, Nkechi, she's probably Ghanaian. Daddy, some of them are Nigerian women too. I say, okay. 77% does not argue well for my daughter's assertion. Anyway, Claire, maybe you want to talk about that later. Factions agree 72-hour ceasefire. This was actually let out by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken as early as 10 p.m. or thereabout yesterday. About time, too, you want to say, but are the feuding factions going to let the temporary truce hold? That's the question. Well, what should matter to us is that the present circumstance, in the present circumstance rather, is that the report that Ethiopian elements are blocking fleeing Nigerian students from leaving Sudan. And you ask, why would that happen? The first thing to do is to ascertain the veracity of the report, because these days things are being thrown, around left, right, and center. Some of them are not true. So let's ascertain if it is true. Our mission in the relevant country should do that. And if it is true, we should move fast to address it. Because, I mean, how can you stop a man who is trying to flee from bullets It doesn't make sense. But as I said earlier, it is important to firstly find out whether it is true or not. Latest reports anyway say that there are attempts to take out about 5,500 Nigerians through the roads from Sudan. This must be the students, because the number of Nigerians in Sudan, runs into millions. Well, whatever that means, whatever means of transport they want to adopt, let it be safe and efficient. That's what matters. There's a further report Airpeace is offering to help get Nigerians trapped in Sudan out. No means available or possible should be ignored. Safety and efficiency of the choice made should be our concern. That's what I want to think. Do you want me to quickly say that the president-elect is back?
Oh,
okay.
No, you don't have to say that. It's all over.
It's all over.
It's all over. Everybody. I mean, we saw the tumultuous crowd that went to the airport to welcome him, and of course, we also saw on the morning highlights of the morning news this morning.
To tell you the truth, I really wanted to indict rumor mongers. This place is becoming a hotbed for silly stories. That's why I wanted to mention it.
All right.
We have to be careful.
I know Kingsley would want to say one or two things about Sudan. Kingsley, please. Okay.
I wanted to say about Sudan because that's our major topic for discussion.
Okay, so let me just take up.
No, the topic issue that is of concern to me is the feature here promoted on the front page of the Punch newspaper. It says Lagos Stadium from West Africa's best to national shame.
I'm
that
sure
story
you heard
is a feature story. It's on page 3 of the Punch newspaper. Of course, the peg for the story is the collapse of the lamp post for the floodlights at the stadium. You know what it is for the lamp post for the floodlights to collapse, which meant that there had been gradual deterioration, rust, and decay, and then
over time,
and then it collapsed. And they said that they were lucky that there were no persons around. There wasn't a busy time for persons to come around. That stadium had been in decay and disrepair. You just say to yourself, why do we behave this way? It is not just the National Stadium in Surulere, Lagos, which was built in 1972 and used, of course, to host the All-Africa Games in 1973. With massive public infrastructure are just left to rot. A couple of years ago on Good Morning Nigeria, we hosted an association of professional facility managers. This goes beyond just typical civil service thing. You have professionals whose business is facility management, and you contract them. The terms of the contract are spelled out, and then they run the facility for you. If they don't run it very well, of course, you abrogate the contract and move on. But we never do that. People who have no competence to manage facilities are handed such facilities to manage. Persons who have no business with janitorial services are given cleaning services to handle. And also, I remember mentioning it on Good Morning Nigeria. But here at the Moshood Abiola Stadium in Abuja, did you see the last match? The pitch was regressed. Hang on, the pitch was regressed, and virtually who is who, including officials from Dangote that facilitated that, they went there for a photo opportunity, regressing the pitch. So you ask yourself, those top clubs that play matches 2-3 times in a week on their pitches, how come at that time, it would have been Queen Elizabeth II, how come they were not inviting Queen Elizabeth II to come and see what little things that we ordinarily should be in a position to handle, we don't handle them. And it's going to cost a lot more now to fix that lamppost for the flood, assuming the floodlights have been used. I've not entered that main bowl for well over 20 years, but I don't know.
I felt scandalized when I saw the bare patches during the last match at the Moshood Abiola. Yes, we could argue it's dry season, but some people manage to keep their field green all around the year. We can do it too.
Chukwudi and Kingsley, I have a lot of emotional attachment to the National Stadium in Lagos. Because that's the first place I learned to run. It used to be a beehive of activities. I mean, You could go there for inter-house sports. That's where a lot of, super stars were made. The likes of Miriam Yale, the likes of Yusuf Ali, and so many other names. That's where, these great Nigerians were made. And at the time, the National Stadium was just, a beauty to behold. I mean, you could go to the main bowl, you could, train right inside the main bowl. You could go to the training pitch. You could go there and do your runs. I mean, so to hear of this, it's really pathetic and a big shame. But let me go to the issue of bleaching, which you talked about, and indeed, a critique of that, or rather, a response to that, will be that it may also be that the M gender may be complicit in the act and in increasing the numbers.
Not may. Some men consciously buy toning or bleaching creams for their wives.
You know where I'm going?
But they see an African woman who has not touched her skin. They stare like practically like morons. They like the beauty of it.
If you take a street poll today, it's most likely that you find men who show preference for white-skinned ladies will probably, be higher.
Yeah, you must find a way of blaming the men folk for
No.
what women have done.
I said, go to the street and take a street poll.
Well, actually, I know that some men encourage their wives to bleach. That's the truth.
Why would you encourage your wife to bleach? You're not satisfied with the color of the skin. It's an age-old story about the consequences or the hazards of bleaching.
Yes.
Cancer is there. It also affects the internal organs. We hear kidney. It's affected by some of these bleaching creams that percolate the system. But you find them all around the shops, and people just assume that
any cut on your skin might not heal quickly.
Is the taste of the respective individual. How you look after yourself is how you would, of course, live. And then you live with the consequences of whatever steps.
J.K. Agri must be turning in his grave.
Men are all, these days, you go out, you see a lot of men. You see their knuckles, you see the back of the ears.
It's okay. It must end with men.
May God help us. But I think we'd like to end, Kirsty, without, if you don't have any other contribution.
I think our time is up anyway. Our time is up, I think.
Sudan, that's the only comment to make in passing about Sudan is the conflict and warmongers amongst us. You look at what is happening in Sudan today and see what the consequences of war.
Thank you.
Of war, what the consequences are. Sometimes we think that international community will come and help you. International community, they are going to Sudan to rescue their own nationals, not you, and then they will leave you there. So, and that's what happens. They will snatch their own citizens, take them to safety, and then they will be holding conferences elsewhere while, of course, you are burying your dead and so on and so forth in your environment. And that burying the dead also, I'm sorry, brings up another very sad...
When a war starts, it's every man for himself.
Well, another sad story, this time in Kenya. I'm sure we have heard that. A so-called starvation cult, where a pastor, by whatever appellation, was telling the followers or members of his church to starve themselves.
And they really starved them to death.
Starve themselves so that ultimately they will go and meet the Redeemer. And it started as a rescue of persons who were emaciated. And now at least 58 bodies have been recovered, some of them from graves around the location where that took place. And you ask yourself, how do you brainwash these individuals for them to get into the kind of self-immolation, in a sense? You starve yourself to death. Well, he's been arrested, and I hope that he faces the consequences.
All right, Chukwudi, on that note, let me just say I'm black and proud. Have a good day.
J.K. Agri, I'm proud of my color. He who is not proud of his color is not fit to live in the whole wide world.
All right,
Africa, my
Chukwudi,
Africa.
goodbye. See you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria. We'll be right back in just a moment. Okay, if you've just joined in, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and this morning our focus will be on Sudan. And you know, the ongoing fight in that country, which is taking place in Khartoum, the capital city, has generated serious concern, of course, in the Committee of Nations, especially about the safety of innocent citizens as well as foreign nationals, including 5 million Nigerians living in that country. Let's get the background report from our correspondent, Uyemi Ajayi.
Days counting, with no side ready to neither retreat nor surrender. The conflict in Sudan has continued to be a source of worry to the world leaders, with efforts and anticipation on when the guns will be silenced. It's a story of what one can call two bosom friends who had disagreement, leaving the environment or others to suffer. It's actually the conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary group known as the Rapid Support Forces, who once worked together in 2019 in a popular uprising that overturned Sudan's leader Omar al-Bashir, who ruled the country for 3 decades. Now with the desire to integrate the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, of his former deputy, Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, into the Sudanese armed forces led by Sudan's army chief, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the latter refused, citing reasons which didn't go well with the former, hence escalating into a national conflict. As of today, more than 400 people have been killed, with about 3,500 injured, in addition to thousands displaced, as civilians fled the country's capital, Khartoum, as the violence entered day 17. In the minds of foreigners in the country is how to evacuate from the country, especially when most planes parked at the airport were burnt, making it difficult to travel, knowing well that no corridor was allowed for escape. Recently, news about foreign countries, especially the US, UK, Germany, France, evacuating their nationals from the battle-torn Sudan filled the airspace, but Nigerians are yet to be out of the woods. The Nigerian government said efforts are ongoing to commence the evacuation process. How long will it now take for this final approval? What are the criteria to be allowed to evacuate nationals from other countries like Nigerians? What is delaying the evacuation of Nigerians from the battleground, and how safe are Nigerians in Sudan? Why should sister security agencies engage in such a fierce fighting against each other at the expense of the security of lives and property of the citizens? These are some questions begging for answers now.
Thank you very much, Uyemi Ajayi, for that backgrounder. Now, to discuss issues around the conflict in Sudan and the safety of Nigerians in that country, as well as plans to get them out of harm's way, we have in the Abuja studios Ambassador Dauda Danladi, as Nigeria's former High Commissioner to Pakistan, and of course an expert on international affairs. Ambassador Danladi, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right, let's also welcome Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa, who is the Chairman, CEO, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NITCAM, and she joins us via Zoom from Lagos. Honorable Dabiri Erewa, thank you very much for joining us all the way from Lagos.
Good morning. Nice to be with you. Good morning.
All right, and we also have Mohammed Bello Shehu, who's a student of the Hayat University College, Khartoum, in Sudan. And if we have him, he's also joining us via Zoom. Mohammed Bello Shehu, thank you very much for joining us from Khartoum.
Thank you for having me.
Let's quickly begin with you. Kingsley, we should begin with him, right?
Oh, sure,
yes.
sure. I mean, because he's right there in Khartoum.
In Khartoum,
we assume. Yes.
So, Mohammed Bello, just give us an idea. Where are you speaking to us from, and what's the circumstance around where you are? Is it safe for you? I presume. Mohammed Bello, can you hear us?
Actually, the network here is not very good. So
okay, so I just want you to tell us where you are. What is the situation around you? And I presume it's safe for you to be able to join us.
I'm sorry, the network here is really bad.
Okay. We just let you to get your connections right. We'll return to you just a moment. So that's Mohammed Bello Shehu, who is a student of Hayat University College in Khartoum, Sudan. We'll return to him as soon as we're able to get the connections right. Kingsley.
Okay, well, let's also bring in Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa, who is the chair and CEO of NITCOM. Honorable Dabiri Erewa, as of this morning, what are you hearing from Nigerians who are in Khartoum and probably elsewhere in the Sudan?
Thank you very much and good morning. I wish we had actually heard Mohammed. I'd have loved to have heard from him. As of this morning, all is set to get the students to open their offices to Cairo, basically Luxor and Aswan borders. A trip, I'm told, takes almost 28 hours to even get there. It's these are anxious moments for everybody, but with everything in place by the National Emergency Management Agency, all is set to convey them in buses. Now they ask for about 40 buses are available as of now, but buses are already set up to take the Nigerian students to Cairo in Egypt. So that now, and we'll brief you as soon as the takeoff, start proceeding on those journeys. Like I said, it was important for the mission to ensure security of our students. And with the cooperation from Egypt, our ambassador in Egypt, Ambassador Nura Arimi, also ensured that there'll be security from the Egyptians as well as from the Sudanese side. So it's important that the students go secured and all that to their destination. So we're all anxiously awaiting them to take off this morning.
That's good to hear, and we honestly want to commend all the efforts that everyone is putting together to make sure that our students are back home. Are we also going to take the 72-hour humanitarian ceasefire that the two factions have agreed to probably evacuate all those Nigerians who want to come home?
Yes, that's why I'm saying that. That's why we told people that it was important that you don't just get up and start going and start driving. So there's been another 72-hour ceasefire, which of course we're taking advantage of. And before the ceasefire, the Minister of Foreign Affairs had spoken to both sides of the divide on the need to ensure safety of Nigerians that will be living. So we have that already, and then provide security on those buses. Even with the ceasefire, there must be security on those buses. As of yesterday, a sad incident occurred. An Egyptian official was actually killed while he was just driving. Yesterday, he was driving, and it was an official, a diplomat, was lost his life just yesterday. So we just want to ensure that no Nigerian life is lost. So yes, that is good news, and we hope that the ceasefire maybe eventually become, hopefully, the end of the war, because really, there should be peace in Sudan, and that is part of what we're hoping will happen. So yes, the key thing is for us to be able to get our people out of that place from this very morning. It may take, that's why we're getting all the buses together. NEMA has worked 24/7 to make that happen. So as our ambassadors in Cairo, in Ethiopia, in Chad, all working together. NEMA, NITCOM, immigration, everybody working together. And can I correct an impression? Some people have been saying, oh, a war broke up and then a committee was set up. A committee was not set up because of the war. Even before Ukraine, the Office of the Chief of Staff to the President, Ambassador Professor Gambari, actually put in place a standing committee on evacuation. So it's chaired by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, with agencies like NITCOM, NEMA, Immigration, NIA, and other agencies part of that committee. So it wasn't set up because of this, but it's there, and hopefully to be reinforced and ensure that maybe have a little funding set aside so that in cases like this, you don't have to wait for a while to make that happen. I just wanted to clarify.
It's really good you clarified this, Honorable Abike Dabiri, because yesterday, when I heard you speak to Cyril Stober on the news at 9, my mind kept racing, and I was wondering why we can't have something like an integrated standby, mechanism that we can deploy, because we had an experience with Ukraine, evacuating our students from Ukraine, and now this. So it's possible to really put together a team, just like you have in conflicts. I mean, we had ECOMOG and all that. But it's good you made this clarification, and we're happy. We have a committee that can easily be deployed when we have similar cases. But again, I know Kingsley has a question. Please, Kingsley, go ahead.
Well, Honorable Abike, what is the scale of operation that the federal government is embarking on in this evacuation process? Is it only Nigerian students who've been taken out, or diplomats and other Nigerians amongst the 5-odd million, we understand, who live in the Sudan, that will be given the opportunity of getting on these safe buses?
Yes, the first set are the students. So all these buses are for students. You see, those. And before, I just want to finish my answer to clear on the committee, to stress that it was an initiative of Professor Gambari, who actually said after the Ukraine crisis. But what needs to be done is reinforce it and make sure that not that it's when a crisis happens that there will be a meeting, and then maybe if the team has some kind of maybe minimal funding set aside so that initial things can be done before approvals and all that. So let me just clarify that it was an initiative by Professor Gambari, approved, of course, by President Muhammadu Buhari. Yeah, in terms of the scale, well, the students are all lined up. The names, they've been compiled. All those who said they wanted to come back are students. So their names, they've been written, their data is with the mission, and their documentation, everything has been done. But for Nigerians in Sudan who want to come back home, well, if you want to, you can also join the team and get to Cairo. But I think it's a bit difficult for them. This is home for them. The students are studying and coming back. For a lot of Nigerians, that is home for them. And like I said somewhere yesterday when I was answering a question, the richest Nigerian person in Sudan is a Nigerian. So for them, it's about, look, let this war be over. Let this be a dream. Let it be over, because they're going to lose everything. It's their home. Everything is there. So I don't think they are rushing to leave. Rather, they are going into bunkers and trying to survive while they hope that there will be a ceasefire and then the final end of this war. But for the students, also a very large number. 5,500 is what we have. But on the list now, that's why they needed 40 buses. Each bus takes about 60. So let's see how many we can leave. And one of the things that was decided by both the ministries of foreign affairs and humanitarian is that we can't do, some people said, America is coming, they've taken their diplomats. We can't do that. We can't take diplomats and leave students behind. We have to wait, ensure they are properly secured, and then make these arrangements. And I'm glad that is happening now. And I know the effort that has been put into making this happen. So what happens now, let's monitor the journey. It's a long journey. It's over a day's journey to get to Cairo. So that's the next state of anxiety and looking forward to them leaving. So all stops are being pulled, everything is being put in place. And also to ensure that right now there's no food, there's no water in Khartoum. So ensure that as they get on that, you're able to take care of them. And then when they get to Cairo, the mission will be waiting for them. In fact, the DG of NEMA is already in Cairo. The ambassador is already in Cairo. Some officials are there. Hopefully, all waiting for them. Now, let me talk about Ethiopia. We also have videos of some people struggling in Ethiopia. Here's the thing, and we kept telling the students, one of the things we told the students is, don't go alone. Get together so that security can be provided together. Yes, we understand the anxiety. Some found their way to Ethiopia. You can't just get to Ethiopia and say, look, I'm fleeing, take me in. So they had some issues. But the Nigerian ambassador in Ethiopia, Ambassador Adeleke, the head of Chancery, again immediately stepped in. We got 7 names from Ethiopia, including the lady who sent that video. So there are 7 names from Ethiopia, but right now they've entered Ethiopia. They were taken in by some very kind Ethiopians, and the mission established contact with them. But you see, even in Ethiopia, they're still at the border. Just as I saw with Mohammed, there are internet, there are issues with connectivity, and Ethiopia has no crisis. They're just getting out of the Tigray crisis. So for them to, they have been a little bit uptight about, we're just opening our doors to everybody. So again, understand their own situation. But right now, they haven't even solved the crisis. They're about starting an MOU, and so it's like some kind of tension in Ethiopia. So we've chosen Cairo as the route to bring our people back home. So just wanted to stress that about Ethiopia, that our ambassador has been on it. Anybody that goes there now, in fact, the embassy wanted to be at the border with the staff, but they refused, again, because of their own Tigray crisis that would not allow them at the border, an Ethiopian border.
Honorable Abika, thank you very much. And I think that for Nigerian analysts, what we are seeing in recent years obviously should be heartwarming. We saw how the various agencies and Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the officials got on to Ukraine to get our students and other nationals out of harm's way. Of course, there were persons who felt that the war in Ukraine would last only a couple of weeks, but here we are, it's already 14 months into that war and it's still ongoing. So any optimistic projections about the Sudan should also factor that in, that things are likely to be more complicated. And by the way, Abika, let's take advantage of your journalistic experience. 30 years ago or a little more, when Liberia descended into civil war, we saw what happened to Nigerians who were trapped even in their own missions in Monrovia. This kind of, if you like, sea change of seeing government agencies responding to Nigerians in distress, particularly in conflict situations. What are the abiding lessons to learn from this?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear the last part of your question.
Okay, but you got the preface to my question, and I'm saying, what are the abiding lessons to learn from this in terms of responding to Nigerians who are in distress in foreign lands?
Well, number one, we have a diaspora commission, so it's easier to communicate. We never had a diaspora commission, so it's easier to communicate. And now you have an agency that can at least pass the commission and then work with other agencies. Now, just as the chief of staff set up, this team needs to be a standing team and must be all prepared. So it's made up of all agencies, also including security, NIA, SS. Don't forget that in Libya, when the crisis in Libya started, President Muhammadu Buhari, was the very first president, and for the first time, he said, listen, go into Libya, go into the detention centers, bring everybody out. So for the first time, we were able to also set in a multi-agency collaboration, refugee commission. There was no humanitarian affairs then. Refugee commission, as a diaspora then, went into Libya itself and were able to bring them out with 4 planes, at least brought back almost about 10,000, although the sad thing is that they're still going despite all that. So I think it's important to be more proactive and be prepared for anything. And I think that has started with this. It's just about strengthening it and ensuring that no matter what, you're ready to be there. But also, safety. You can't be too far for yourself. Imagine you just start getting on the bus and you're leaving, you're driving away, and then your life is in danger. So safety, but a team of this kind is strengthened. And NEMA, of course, has played a critical role. So, and then let's cut down bureaucratic bottlenecks in matters like this. I think that's just the lessons to learn. There's so much bureaucracy, particularly also when it's agency collaboration. There's a lot of bureaucracy that needs to be cut out in matters like this. But Nigeria has done well in terms of evacuation, South Africa, Ukraine, now Sudan, China, India, Russia. There are many you don't even talk about that we have to bring our people back. And so all we need to do is build on that and make it as effective as possible.
Honorable Abike Dabre, just a last question from me. There was a video trending. I stumbled onto it, I think, early hours of this morning, of a young female Nigerian in Khartoum apparently appealing for help. I do hope she was able to get onto the bus, that will be leaving this morning. But what struck me was, the statement she made about the kind of protection, that's how I want to put it, the Nigerian students are getting, whereas other students from other countries, were being attacked. She says that the Nigerian students were not. So my question will be, are we getting any form of support from the Sudanese government, any form of security? And would you say our capacity to handle these, situations like these is growing? Are we developing this capacity very well?
Yeah, I would say we are developing, but we can always do better in everything we do. So no government is perfect, nobody is perfect. We are developing it. We should be, that is, we have to say, relatively, Nigeria has not done badly in this regard. And consider also that we always have the largest. I mean, how many people have 5,500 students? And that is even an underestimation. But the girl, she's already she actually got to Ethiopian border. And she said she was worried about those coming. But most of those coming, now the mission is bringing everybody through Cairo, because it's easier for us to bring them out through Cairo. Like I said, and Aswan borders. So they are in, the name's killing me now, but there are two borders in Ethiopia where they got to Metema, and two borders in Ethiopia. But she is one of those that have entered Ethiopia. Now there's a problem of internet connectivity, but the mission connected with her, and I think she said so. So the Charge d'Affaires has actually been talking to her. She's actually the head of the 7 that officially documented that got to Ethiopia border. But for most of the, some were heading to Ethiopia border, they've moved to Cairo, they moved to Egypt because it's easier, and we're getting more cooperation and a lot of support from that side. So did I answer your questions? I thought I did. I hope I did.
Yeah.
And then don't forget that that video was on day.
Sorry, I didn't.
That video of the circulating that video, it goes over and over again, and I hope that the young lady will also do an update on that video.
Honorable Abike, we know that this is a very busy period for you. If we're able to get back to you in the course of the conversation, we'll return, assuming in the interval you have additional information for our viewers with respect to the evacuation plans by the federal government of some 5,500 Nigerian students who are trapped in the crisis area in Khartoum and elsewhere around the country. So, Honorable Abike, we're going to have to pause you. As I said, if we're able to get back to you, we'll do that. But we are getting to introduce another guest who is joining us from our Benin Network studios. If it's right there, we can see him on the screen. If it's there in our Benin Network Center, if our engineers have been able to upload that, right there. Okay, Ambassador Martin Omoibi is a former permanent secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he was also, in 2015, appointed the Joint Special Representative for Darfur and head of the African Union and United Nations hybrid operation in Darfur. Darfur, of course, we know it's in the western part of the Sudan. Ambassador Omoibi, we're glad to have you this morning on Good Morning Nigeria from our Benin Network Center.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's bring you in quickly into the conversation so that we get some background feel. We understand that there's some audio issue there, but let's see if that's been cleared up quickly. Ambassador Martin, what is happening in Sudan right now, does it come to you as a surprise? And is it likely to be a short-lived affair or probably likely to be complicated?
Conversation which is very timely and very appropriate for Nigeria. I was privileged to be, as you rightly said, the head of the African Union, United Nations Joint Peace Mission in Darfur, Sudan, and that took me to Sudan in 2016, returned in 2017. I'm not at all surprised that we have this. If you look at the history of Sudan, even the formation of Sudan as a country, Sudan became independent in 1956, and just 2 years after that, there was the first coup. Sudan stands out in African history as the country with the highest number of coup d'etats, culminating in the one of 2021. So I'm not at all surprised because I see a lot of instability elements built into the structure of Sudan. In Sudan, you have Eastern influence, Saudi Arabian influence, you also have Western influence, you have Northern influence, and it's like a melting pot of all kinds of civilizations and cultures. And unfortunately, the leadership is structured in such a manner that there's really no synergy, cohesion, and harmony among all the various factions that you have on the ground. So there's an attitude that wants to see others in a different perspective and want to be conquered. So Sudan needs empathy, needs understanding, and needs the collaboration of international partners to get its act together. What we have now seen, or what is unfolding in Sudan, is just a build-up of tension that have been there for decades. Just 2 years, as I said, after independence. And this is the climax of it, and it's very unclear how it's going to turn out. Because the war is not ideology, the war is not for religion, the war is not for what, but just interests of two factions, perhaps even more, who wanted to hang on to power, wanted to grab power at all costs, regardless of the lives that are that will be lost and the consequences that are unfolding from that scenario. Thank you, Kingsley.
All right, Your Excellency Ambassador Uhamobi, thank you very much. We'll return to you presently, but let's bring in Ambassador Dauda Bandadi, former Nigerian High Commissioner to Pakistan, who is right with us here in the studio. My question will be very simple. With what is happening in Sudan, is Nigeria still the giant of Africa?
Well, I think let me start by commending the federal government and all relevant agencies that are involved in the evacuation. Such evacuation in a war zone is complex and very delicate because they have to mediate right inside Sudan as well as neighboring countries so that they can provide safe corridors for the evacuation. So I think all the agencies involved are working around the clock to ensure the successful evacuation. And we also have to, in comparison, just this morning, Canada is saying that it's a little bit difficult for them to go in and evacuate their citizens. Secondly, priority this time around was given to Nigerians living in Sudan rather than evacuating the diplomats first. Going forward, I also want to commend the effort of the chairman of Air Peace, who has also volunteered to participate in the evacuation. And I do believe that perhaps he will have the opportunity to evacuate Nigerians from Egypt. Now, is Nigeria still the giant of Africa? Yeah, that is a very tough question to answer at the moment. But if you look at the role of Nigeria, I think Nigeria has played a significant role in stabilizing crisis in the African region, especially in West Africa. But Nigeria is also a member of the African Union, a member of the United Nations. And the African Union, following the overthrow of the transitional government in 2021, the African Union suspended Sudan, and by extension, it was able to get foreign donors to cut aid to Sudan. I think that possibly might have complicated the issue. Going forward, again, the African Union in the recent past has made frantic efforts, with, of course, Nigeria's participation as a member of the African Union, to see how they can bring the warring functions to the negotiation table. But at each point, the political parties, some of the political parties, abstain from participation in the discussions and negotiations that could have ushered in the much needed peace in Sudan. Why? Because they alleged that members of the NCP, that's the National Congress Party, that has held power, has dominated the political space in Sudan, and of course the revolution that took place in 2019 was the ouster of Umar al-Bashir government as well as the NCP party. So they are saying, why are these people also invited to be at the negotiation when these are the same people that oppose a true democratic rule in Sudan? So as a member of Nigeria, as a member of the African Union, perhaps would only have the opportunity to impress on member countries of the African Union to see if they can rise to the occasion. Recently, the African Union, of course, the United Security Council of the African Union made some declarations or made some observations that, look, and they warn that if external influences interfere in the ongoing crisis in Sudan, it has a tendency to destabilize the Horn of Africa.
That's exactly.
It has a tendency to destabilize North Africa. It has a tendency to destabilize the Sahel region.
And
as you know, yes, and it will escalate. Yes, as you know right now, there is tension between even Egypt and Ethiopia, following Ethiopia's construction of a 5 billion dam.
You know why I'm asking? Because as it is now, we hear quite a large number of people are moving into Chad. And of course, we know our relationship with Chad, and we know what that portends, for our own security. And a lot of people are asking, given the multiplicity of interest, external interest in Sudan at the moment, and those trying to broker peace one on another, why is it that Nigeria is not exercising her hegemonic power to influence peace settlement between these two, warlords?
Yeah, well, I would not be in a proper position to speak for the government, but based on observation, is that you are right. Refugees, there is mass influx of refugees into Chad, into Egypt, and into possibly Ethiopia, South Sudan. Yes, there is the tendency that looking at the volatile situation in Chad, that it could spill over to Nigeria. And you see, already Sudan had over 1 million refugees from Eritrea. You know, the crisis between in Ethiopia and Tigray region, of course, and Eritrea and Somalia are just failed states, as far as based on my opinion. So therefore, I hope it will not provide a buffer employment zone for Boko Haram and ISWAP, which will further compound the security challenges that Nigeria is facing.
Okay, Ambassador Dauda Danladi, thank you very much. I want to return to Ambassador Martin Uwomoibi. Of course, you are a historian with your doctorate in history. Try to again contextualize for our viewers what we are dealing with in Sudan, because the conflict in Darfur doesn't appear to have ended. And then the South Sudan broke away to get its independence, which it achieved sometime in 2011. And now we are seeing street fights of the two forces, the armed forces and the RSF in Khartoum itself. So what does this mean? And as Ambassador Danladi was also saying, Sudan doesn't appear to have the best of relationships with some of his neighbors, some of which, of course, like Ethiopia and Tigray and Eritrea, are having their own conflicts around the Horn of Africa. How do we understand all of this to make sense of it and just say, look, it's not simply a question of extracting Nigerians from Sudan, but to make sense of it and probably project to see what crisis we might be facing that could spill over beyond the borders of Sudan?
Thank you very much, Kingsley, for that very comprehensive question, if you want me to say so. Sudan is like a melting pot for several civilizations, as I said earlier. Arab civilization, African, original African, the Nubian people of Sudan, and Sudan is, the word Sudan means black. But what is Sudan today? Sudan is an amalgam or a fusion of all these diversities, complexities, and complicatedness that surrounds the history of that region. Nigeria is key in Africa, is a key country. Nigeria cannot hide. Nigeria is gold, it must shine. Darfur and peace in the Sudan was one of Nigeria's primary concerns in the very early times. In fact, there is a theory that the ancestry of al-Bashir is partly Nigerian. And he's very proud to say this. At least I was in Darfur and he said that to me quite a few times. So their roots are here. My greatest concern is that if we do not get involved somehow in the resolution of this conflict, like we did in Darfur many, many years ago, and our role there has remained key. The first peacekeeping army, UNAMID army, was headed by Nigerian Lieutenant General Matthew Aguai. We have constantly remained a huge force, or we have remained a huge force in that place while UNAMID was on because of our historical linkage, because of our strategic relevance in the African context. So I think this needs to be not to be forgotten at all. We should not run away from mediation, direct mediation in the conflict, because the Sudanese, all parties, they take Nigeria seriously. Nigeria must not shy away, because there is no way, just like it happened in Libya, if Sudan implodes and the crisis there is sustained for a very long time, the consequences will impact somehow on our country, Nigeria. And that is something that we do not want to add or expect to happen, but it could well happen. So I'm of the view that we should play a very proactive role. We should not, the countries of Africa take Nigeria very, very seriously. And just like we've done historically, we must continue to do that. Yes, of course, it's important to get our citizens out, but I think we should also get involved in efforts directly. Based on our integrity and loyalty and our Africanness or African centricity, we should get directly involved in the mediation and resolution of the present crisis between really two brothers in the military, in the same country. The army is at war with a faction of the army, the Rapid Response Force. And it's a struggle it's a contest for power, not for ideology, not for a different country, but power and influence and authority. And if the situation there continues, the scandal of anti-democratic forces there will definitely spread and will not be good for even a country like Nigeria. So I think we need to gather other countries of like interest, Niger, Chad, neighboring countries, our friends from Saudi Arabia, to really understand this, that peace is the master key to development and progress. Peace, dialogue is key and is important. Darfur, the crisis in Darfur, which lasted for a very long time and which is still not quite over, was racial between the Arabs and the black Africans. But this one is between themselves, more or less. And how does that end? So Nigeria must, I think, take a leadership role in trying to resolve this conflict, and can do it because I know that Nigeria has a lot of integrity and influence and potential to be a positive force in the dynamics playing out in Sudan at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. We will get back to you to also give us an insight into what kind, the context, give us the context of role you think Nigeria can play. Again, I mean, two people, individuals, leading two forces. These are individuals. They can't be bigger than the African Union. They can't be bigger than, a whole continent. So something can be done to bring both of them to the negotiating table. But let me bring in now Mohammed Bello Shehu, the student from Hayat University College, Khartoum, in Sudan. There he is now, and the connection now is much clearer. We can see, Bello, we can see your face much clearer and shining. I mean, why aren't you on the bus that is supposed to be leaving today to Cairo?
Actually, there is no bus yet. We have seen no bus. Like, there is no bus on ground. We were told that the company will not mobilize their buses because they have not been paid yet.
Okay, Mohammed Bello Shehu, thank you very much. But is there a presumption, for instance, that all the Nigerian students, 5,500 plus of them, are necessarily at the Hayat College in Khartoum? In other words, were you all supposed to congregate at one location?
What was supposed to be the meeting point was International African University and El-Razi University. Some of them are where am I now? My meeting point is International African University, but I don't know about those that are in El-Razi now. So I can't say anything. But before I leave International African University, a lot of Nigerians are there waiting for buses.
About how many are you at your location right now?
Actually, I can't say the exact number, but there are a lot. And some are still arriving, while some are coming back from the Ethiopian border to here.
I imagine that you are also in touch with some fellow students or other Nigerians whom you know in Sudan. What are you learning from them about their current condition?
What I can say, some are really, really suffering because there are some places there is no light, there is no water, they don't have food. So actually, it is very, very sad. Some have already left their houses, and they have been sleeping in International African University for like 2 days now.
I want you to, clarify your earlier statement that there's no bus, because the chairman of NITCON had said that there's been an arrangement. Is it that you yourself are not aware about the arrangement, or that it is not yet on ground, that students are waiting? What exactly do you know personally about the arrangement to evacuate Nigerian students from Khartoum?
Okay, what we are told first, that we are supposed to leave 6 a.m. today. So later, yesterday night, we were told that the buses will not come because they have not been paid. So when I entered International University today this morning, I was told that the buses will come around 12 p.m.
Okay, so there's been a shift from the departure time by about 6 hours. 6 a.m. earlier, now is 12 noon. Who is looking after those who are about to be evacuated? Have you had your breakfast or some snack just to keep you going?
Yeah, we had some disputes. That's all. Most of the shops are closed, so we have to go a long way to find food. But there's no food in school or something. Most of the things we're eating are all biscuits and drinks.
How long have you been in Sudan? And before now, what was the place like?
What is it?
How long have you been in Sudan? And before the crisis broke on the 15th of April, what was the place like?
Actually, the place was very peaceful. There's nothing. It is really okay at the moment.
Let me ask you, we hear that the story back home here in Nigeria is that other foreign nationals are evacuating their own, people, and everybody is going and all that. Do you have other, students from other countries, still, in Sudan? What are their numbers? And who are you speaking with? Who is relating with you in Sudan from Nigeria?
Actually, I don't have anyone. Who is talking to me from Nigeria? Actually, I don't have anyone talking to from Nigeria.
Who is passing information to you? How are you getting your information?
Oh, the NASA president. They are the one passing the information. They are the one in direct contact with the embassy. So when they decide what is really going to happen, then they pass the information to us.
Where is he now? Where is he now? What is the current information that he has passed to you with regards to your being evacuated?
Okay, the current information is now that the buses will arrive 12 p.m. That's what we are told.
Okay. Mohammed Shehu, I still want to stay with you. And part of the question, of course, has to do with the safety around your location. Has any of the campuses, to the best of your knowledge, including where you are, has it come under attack by either members of the armed forces or members of the rapid support forces? I'm asking this question because over the weekend, I was watching a Nigerian student, Musa Ali Ibrahim, who was speaking on Al Jazeera. And he was saying that female students had to be evacuated from their hostel in one of the universities because right behind their hostel was the camp of the ROSF. And there were fears that they might get the place strafed. So has any of the campuses been hit by any of the warring factions?
Yes, the female hostel was behind, the camp of the RSF was behind the female hostel. So they have been evacuated since the beginning of the war. Recently, the male hostel at Maududi, the other hostel which belongs to International African University, was also evacuated because the RSF has taken hold of it.
Is there any Nigerian student that has been hurt so far?
Actually, I don't really know. I don't have any information about any Nigerian getting hurt or something.
Now, have you been told about the length of your journey from where you are to Cairo? Say how long that is going to be, so that you get yourself properly kitted. I understand you were talking about snacking on biscuits and so on and so forth. This is going to be a potentially long journey. Are you aware of that?
Yes, we are told that it is going to be around 2.5 days. So most of us are smoking biscuit and water and drinks.
Wow.
Mohammed, sure. We are wishing you the very best, and then indeed all others who are potential evacuees from harm's way in Sudan. Last year, we had similar interactions with Nigerians, including students who were fleeing, many of them on foot, and that was, of course, in the course of winter, fleeing from Ukraine, trying to get into Hungary, Poland, and other neighboring locations. War, of course, is an ugly thing. We're going to have to pause you and the other guests and go on this short break. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation. All right, you're welcome back here, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Back at the studios here, Ambassador Dauda Danladi. Ambassador Owomaibi talked about the role that the Nigerian government should play in this, that the Nigerian government cannot be a bystander. And of course, he articulated his reasons. But it also indicates to us the historical, social, and even cultural linkages. You are from Borno State. And of course, Borno State, part of what is now known as Borno State, was part of the Kanem Borno Empire under Mayor Idris Aloma. And that up to right now, there are linkages between Nigerians and those in Chad and up to Sudan. And so people are flowing back and forth. So how are these cultural linkages, and what are we getting to learn at this time that, well, let's say, not a full-scale war yet, but conflict has broken out between the security forces in the country?
Well, let me say that my boss, Ambassador Martin, whom I'm glad to see this morning, the suggestion that he has made that Nigeria should raise its voice to mediate in the resolution of the ongoing crisis in Sudan, I think is a timely one. Yes, I come from Borno State, and we have some cultural affinities that cut across Chad and up to Sudan. But as has been observed by Ambassador Martins, you see, we have to look at what are the remote causes of this ongoing crisis. And I think the immediate remote crisis, if it is understood, could be addressed. One was that Burhan, who is the de facto leader of Sudan, following the 2021 coup that ousted the Transitional Sovereign Council, started reappointing members of the NCP and politicians that have close association with Umar al-Bashir. That has cast doubt in his deputy, that is General Muhammad Hamdal Dagolo. Secondly, the integration of the rapid forces into the Sudanese army without a clear framework of what will be the position of the number 2 man, that is General Mohammed. What will be his position? As you know, General Mohammed have also very close ties with Wagner Group that have been supporting him. They have been exporting gold to Russia and, of course, to Dubai markets. He has amassed wealth, and he is in a good position to fund his troops. Again, General Mohammed, the second man in command, if you recall, he was one who led mercenaries to Yemen on the behest of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates to fight a proxy war in Yemen. General Dagolo again has close affinity with the warlord in Libya, General Haftar, who now some Western media are saying have sent troops to Dagolo. So if you look at the remote causes, I think Nigeria can be able to mediate. Find out a good framework that is workable between the two parties with regard to the integration of the RSF. Secondly, the economic policies which General Burhan put in place. Mohammed, his 2IC, suspected that it was targeted at dismantling his business empire. That could easily be addressed. The issue of appointing people from the defunct National Congress Party and politicians that were close to Umar al-Bashir, that could also be addressed. So I think I strongly support what Ambassador Martins have said, that Nigeria needs to raise its voices considering the historical relationship between Nigeria and Sudan and the cultural affinities between the people of Nigeria, especially we from Borno State and our brothers in Chad. I think we have a window of opportunity that can really put Nigeria on a good leverage. But let me just quickly point out this, that you see, apart from the Arab League that has raised its voice on Sunday, that there must be an unconditional ceasefire in Sudan, right? The IGAD, that is the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, have nominated 3 presidents, 3 African presidents. The president of Kenya, the president of Djibouti, and I think the president of South Sudan, that they should please try and reach out to these 2 leaders, these 2 warring functions, so that they can mediate towards the resolution of the ongoing conflict.
All right, Ambassador Thandadi, thank you. Let's again return to Ambassador Martin Uhomobi. And I'll also, earlier on I was talking about the context of mediation, and Ambassador Thandadi here, has also given us a direction. And given, again, the complexity of the dynamics of the conflict, if we are to begin to mediate, I want to presume that we will begin with the immediate cause of this conflict, which of course is the framework for redeploying the 2 factions and all that. What's your take on that to be, the primary, factor or, for mediation?
Thank you very much for your question. But before that, let me just thank Ambassador Thandadi for recognizing the merit of the point I was making. Nigeria, and I will say it 3 times, Nigeria is a key factor in Africa's geopolitical history. Indeed, in the history of the black race. Look at where Nigeria is located in the map of Africa, and imagine that map to be an AK-47. Nigeria is the trigger. And Nigeria has played out that destiny from its first involvement in the first UN peacekeeping mission in the Congo 7 days after our independence. Nigeria still stands out as the only country in post-Second World War that has projected its military power 1,000 kilometers from its shores as a developing country to stabilize 2 countries simultaneously without borrowing a farthing from anybody. Without Nigeria, 6,000 kilometers away from Southern Africa, what would the history of South Africa be as regard, particularly with regard reference to the liberation movement? Yes, the AU is there. Yes, the United Nations is there. But these are organizations of members to give universality and generality to the principles enunciated from that body. But there are key actors made so by a lot of factors. In the Nigerian case, 1 out of every 4 or 5 Africans is a Nigerian. Nigeria has played a key role throughout its history, and a lot of countries in this continent look up to this country. I was, as I said, in Sudan. I know how I was held because I was Nigerian, not because I was Nigerian, not because I was Martin, because I come from a country for which they have respect. So I believe we have a lot of potentials that can be brought to bear even in this conflict, particularly as this conflict is not one between one race and another race, as in Darfur. This conflict is not between one religion and another religion, as we find in most places. This religion is just between 2 individuals fighting for power, not for ideology. So I think sitting down, a Nigerian voice, properly accredited, can mediate in this and satisfy the interest, the individual interests of the 2 main actors and players. So let me just rest that case. And with regards to mediation, of course is very easy. Ambassador Thandadi has given a very detailed introspection of what the real crisis is and the issues at stake. These are really rather pedestrian in my view, if you ask me, for any negotiator to undertake. And once you meet the interests of these key actors, the country can move forward. The bigger picture should be dramatized, should be emphasized and built upon. And that's what a leader of Nigeria's integrity and status within the context of Africa's geopolitics can play and should play in this sort of matter. Thank you.
I was just wondering, Ambassador Martin, I still want to stay with you. Yes, a good thing for Nigeria to step up and step into the crisis in Sudan, along, of course, with other AU members, and that will be a regional push, as it were. But should we also be cognizant of extra-continental forces that might be at play in this conflict? I mean, we understand from the Arab world, we understand from Eastern Europe, we understand from Western Europe, from the West, and also from Asia. So it might just be a constellation of forces and of interest. So how should we tread more carefully?
That's a very important point to take into account. Given the history of Sudan itself, you can see how external influence, interests came to play even in the creation of Sudan and the metamorphosis that has occurred there up to the very present. So these are strong facts. Russians are there, the Americans are there, the Brits are there on their own, also doing their own part. Saudi Arabia is there. All of this are involved, are interests that needs to be taken into account. But really, Nigeria will stand up for Africa, and Nigeria should stand up for Africa. And that, in the end, that is what counts. It's when we are not proactive and the leadership does not come out, without, I'm not saying that you should disregard these other external influences. Nigeria is destined to be the leader on this continent and should play that role, and has done so without any apologies from its independence, as I said, in 1960. So these other interests will always be there, and the interests are not our interests necessarily by definition. Necessarily, I'm not saying that it cannot be. Our history gives us a story that we cannot ignore. But what I'm saying is that there's need for a leadership, and there's need for definitive, clear action and leadership from Nigeria, because of, I think, the Sudanese not actually recognize this. They are unapologetic in accepting Nigeria as a country for which they have huge respect for and which they are always wanting to take account of. This is based on my own experience in Darfur, Sudan. Please let us not shy away from this. We must be proactive, and we must be Afrocentric, continue to be Afrocentric in our foreign policy. 1 out of every 4 black men on this continent is Nigerian. Go to all the countries and see the roles that Nigeria play in this continent. And we're actually destined to play a leadership role, and our leadership role is unstoppable.
All right, thank you very much. Just the last question, and I will appreciate it if the ambassador can be very brief. What are your readings about the 72-hour humanitarian ceasefire? Well,
that's just an ad hoc thing meant to pacify some countries. I don't think that it is sustainable, and I think this is the time where, as I said, countries that, the thing about Nigeria is not a noise-making country. And if you go into this situation, you have a lot of credibility, empathy, not sympathy, empathy with the peoples there. When I was in Darfur has a population of how many? 7 million people at that time, and 1.6 million of them living in IDP camps under trees, mango trees or palm trees. And yet the UN had been there for 13 years. And the average budget, $1.5 billion. We try to make progress, and I'm glad the UN sustained its effort there, and there is some progress in that place. But I think the role that Nigeria will play, justified by its own history, is totally non-partisan, except being Afrocentric and determined to bring about peace in that country. So I think we have integrity, we have credibility, and we have the strategic relevance in the history of Sudan and understanding of the peoples of Sudan about Nigeria is one that should be tapped upon and utilized for the role of mediation and conflict resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Martin Uhomoibi. If we still have Mohammed Bello Shehu, who is a student that is awaiting evacuation along with others from Khartoum today. If we still have him with us via Zoom, this question will just be for you. I asked earlier, but apparently you missed out that question. What is your year of study and what are you studying? We don't know how long this conflict is going to last, but we hope that it will not be a prolonged affair. We knew what happened to Nigerian students who were evacuated from Ukraine and how they had to seek alternative places to complete their studies. So, what year are you and what are you studying?
Actually, I'm in the second year. I'm studying medicine. It is probably a course here.
Okay, Mohammed Bello Show, thank you very much. You're just kicking off. You still have, I'm not sure how the semester or the academic session works in Sudan. But I wish you and all other Nigerians there a safe passage to Cairo. We saw on the map, Ambassador Danladi, a while ago, that if we see that map again, you can see Sudan is bordered by a number of countries. Egypt is there, Libya is there, Chad is there, Central African Republic, South Sudan now, another country, Eritrea, and Ethiopia. That is 7 countries that it has borders with. If you, of course, it has access to the Red Sea.
Where's Nigeria now? My geography is
and then from Chad.
Chad,
right there. That's the northeastern part.
Yes.
You just get across. So 7 countries actually border the Sudan. So, and we know that Libya itself has been in crisis for quite a while. And so that's that. We wish the Nigerian evacuees, once again, safe passage. In our studios here, Ambassador Dauda Danladi, always a delight having you on international relations analysis. From our Benin Network Center, we were joined by Dr. Ambassador Martin Uhomoibi, former Permanent Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and also the Joint Special Representative for Darfur and head of the AU-UN hybrid operation in Darfur. Earlier, we also had with us via Zoom from Lagos, Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa, Chairperson and CEO of Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NITCOM. And of course, the last comment we got was from Mohammed Bello Shehu, who is a student at Hayat University College in Khartoum. He's a sophomore in medicine in that institution. So wish him the very best along with others. Let's go over now to our sports desk, or foreign desk here.
Ukraine's international allies blasted Russia during a United Nations Security Council meeting chaired by Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov that focused on protecting the principles of the United Nations Charter, which Moscow itself is accused of violating by invading Ukraine last year. In a note to UN member states laying out the premise for the meeting, Russia denounced the unipolar world order that took effect after the end of the Cold War. Before the meeting, Lavrov said the UN system was enduring a profound crisis and accused Western countries, particularly the United States, of being responsible. Russia currently holds the monthly rotating presidency of the UN Security Council and organized the meeting as one of the signature events of its tenure. Addressing the meeting, Lavrov warned that the world was at a threshold, possibly even more dangerous than during the Cold War. Sitting next to Lavrov was the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine as a violation of international law and the UN Charter, adding that the war is causing massive suffering and devastation to the country and its people, aside the global economic dislocation triggered by COVID-19 pandemic.
We face unprecedented and interlocking crises, but the multilateral system is under greater strain than at any time since the creation of the United Nations. Tensions between major powers are at an historic high. so are the risks of conflict through misadventure or miscalculation.
As we sit here, Russian forces continue to kill and injure civilians. As we sit here, Russian forces are destroying Ukraine's critical infrastructure. As we sit here, we brace ourselves for the next Bucha, the next Mariupol, the next Kherson, the next war crime, the next unconscionable atrocity.
President Putin can count the supporters of his war on one hand. Russia has severely damaged its reputation in the international community.
All right.
That's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Thank you for being with us. Tomorrow, another day, 7 o'clock, same time, for the program. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak. Do have a great, great day. But also remember, the fight against rape and rapists is still on. Be our companion. Bye-bye.